Hey there guys, what's going on? It's Gale right here, back on the 5-9 channel, and we are here to do a end of season review for ReZero Season 2. This is going to be the first of many, so if you guys are interested in seeing more, leave a like and comment down below. What do you want from us, and what is your favorite anime of this season, and your thoughts on ReZero as well. May as well put it in there if you have watched it. Of course, tomorrow we will be back with Dr. Stone, but before we go into all that malarkey and, Dr. Stone, Jujutsu Kaisen, and whatnot, now is ReZero. So let's talk about it. Today with me, we have the Platinum Chin. With me, say hello.
What's up, guys?
Very, very enthusiastic man over here, clearly. Very enthusiastic. But no, obviously, we've had ReZero Season 2 air. It's been nearly, when it started airing in 2020, it had been 4 years since the previous season. So we've been waiting for quite a bit for this season, right? And,
Yes.
it was well worth the wait, in my opinion. But Chin, let me know what are your thoughts. What did you think of this season so far? And I mean, so far, what did you think of the season as a whole? The season's ended now.
It was a lot of fun. See, what I ended up doing is I started watching ReZero when it came out, back in 2015, and I didn't actually finish it back then because I was I was busy and I just stopped watching it. So it was actually very recent that I binged the entire series up to this point.
Hey,
And
you have more memory than I do then.
I know, I got it like super fresh in my head.
Yep.
I gotta say, like, just generally comparing the seasons, and we kind of talked about it a bit before, I felt like not a super less amount, but just a hair bit less anxiety while watching this season. You know, I mean, there's a whole lot of emotions that come with this anime that actually make me like love it so much. There's like happy moments, there's sad moments, there's scary moments, it's just overall your heart's beating. You don't know what's gonna happen, right? And like that's the whole essence of the anime, is that you have no idea what is gonna happen at any point, because it could all just restart. And I feel
100%.
like season 2 didn't seem to have as much of that. It had quite a bit, but it didn't have as much as that, which I actually appreciated, because it let me like not have a heart attack every episode or two. And I could kind of enjoy this season as it progressed and be like, okay, cool. The characters that I really like, nothing's gonna happen to them this time. You know, whereas like season 1, it was like, once it got to like episode, like it was actually literally every episode, I think. I can't remember one episode where he didn't reset.
Yeah, no, the one thing about season 1 was that, of course, it was Subaru's introduction to the world as well as ours. So a lot of it was just like, show his like quote unquote power of being able to effectively rewind and go back in time after he dies. Well, every single episode, like you said, nearly in the first season. This season was, I feel, more so, we've learned about the world. Now it's time to connect to all the characters, I feel, because that was the biggest thing. Like, we kind of connected with, obviously, outside of, the big factor in Rem, wait, I mean, who is Rem anyways? Let's be real. But
don't say that.
Who is Rem anyways? But no, outside of Rem, we connected to every single character. Subaru managed to connect with Beatrice, Ram, Emilia, so on and so forth. And of course, we also know that we got introduced to new characters in Garfield, Frederica, obviously Petra we knew from last season, but obviously this season we connected more to again as well. So again, like we connected to new characters and old characters really well in this season. And of course, not only that, I would say arguably it brought back old villains as well as new villains. And honestly, it was a good balance in my opinion, considering all things said and done, with how it was handled, obviously the dual pronged attack, which we'll come on to in a bit, of course, and the idea of trying to be at two places at once and try and save both sides. Some of the stuff was, in my opinion, quite cliche in terms of like the situation, but or like the scenario that they had, or the decision that Subaru had to take is like, oh, what will you choose? Will you save one or will you save the other, kind of thing, right? That's the trope in a lot of shows, I feel, at this point, not just anime but just in general, I think, across the world. but it was handled exceptionally well in my opinion, and was resolved really well as well at the same time, right? But yeah, no, in my opinion as well, carrying on from season 1, I think they did a fantastic job. White Fox have the studio that is, of course, for those who do not know, White Fox is the studio that produces ReZero. Fantastic job by them. Again, like I always praise ReZero for this. Very few shows do this. They never play the OP and ED every single episode. It's always, they alternated. Sometimes they play the ED, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they play the OP, sometimes they don't. It's kind of like, you know what, we need more time for this episode, so we're gonna give it to it. Yes, there are still some issues. I know people have spoken to me like they've kind of skipped out on some stuff and whatnot, but you have to remember they're adapting a light novel, which is a actual novel, versus like a manga, which is just panels onto a adaptation, whereas this is like an actual book into a TV show, which is really, really hard, especially considering the amount of episodes. Considering the amount of episodes, you can't necessarily always be able to accomplish everything in a book, right? We've seen it in movies and whatnot as well. But again, White Fox, brilliant job from them. Soundtrack was brilliant. How did you enjoy the music in this one?
It was, dude, there's so many emotions and types of this is gonna sound weird, types of scenes, action scenes, dramatic scenes, horror, like horror, you know, it's terrifying at times.
I know.
Not only just the music, but the sound effects they use too. It's like everything they use, they just make each atmosphere they're trying to portray so clear. It's so well done. It's like I don't watch a whole lot of anime. I'm not a huge media guy, but I'm just enveloped by this show. You know, it's funny that you know, back to the thing you said about tropes. I think it's kind of funny because I feel like they're really sticking to the theme of the show, right? Because like we said in the season 1, it's Subaru kind of getting used to the world, but to him this world was like a video game to him, you know? And like, exactly. And it's almost like they do kind of stick to that kind of funny, like this is like what you'd have in an MMO. You can't save both, you know. This is they just, the music too. It's
like that Telltale style, like, oh, you know, what choice do you make kind of thing, you know. And for Subaru, it's just like, you know, if I fail it, you know, cutthroat again, I can restart it all over again.
I can restart it again. And I really like that. Of course, like that's so unique to this series, of course.
I mean, we've seen it in some actual Western movies as well. I think it was Edge of Tomorrow, Tom Cruise, I think it was, or something. I don't remember. But, you know, you see this sort of like style / genre, or I guess you can call it plot point of like, oh, the main character can rewind time or something. But I mean, as I said, it's handled exceptionally well. It's not to the point. Yes, they state in the season that it is infinite amount of times, but the starting point is always the same. You don't get to change the starting point or go back even further back in time, or, you know, come to a point where it's actually like you have another junction, quote unquote, right? You have to start at this point all the time after you die, which is handled obviously exceptionally well. I think they handled it well in season 1, season 2 as well. I feel they handled it exceptionally well. So let's get into the plot points of season 2 itself straight away. In my opinion, the first episode itself, let's kick off with that. You know, who is Rem effectively? That's where we'll start off. Obviously, Rem losing her memories, and not only her own memories and everything, everybody else losing memories of her and her identity. So nobody knows who she is. Even her own sister, Ram, doesn't know who she is. So it's like, I think that was a phenomenal start, considering, you know, I went in, you know, we saw them in the carriages and it was like, okay, interesting. And then, you know, Subaru says, oh, Rem declared her love for me, and I said I love you instead to Amelia. And Amelia is just there like, oh, damn.
You know what's tough about it too? It's like, it made me not want to watch the season because Subaru ended on such a big W. He got such a fat W at the end of season 1. I was like, it's only up from here. Immediately, it was like, what? No,
never mind.
Rem?
It's back down.
What?
Something's gone wrong here. Yeah.
And then, you know, he ended his life, and he couldn't. It didn't change it. He was at the plot point of who is Rem, and dude, starting off the season like that, where it's like, oh no, he can't change this. So what is he gonna do? What is this whole season gonna be comprised of? This is insane because he's willing. You saw that he's willing to just end his life. Usually he'll let himself get killed, but he was willing to actually take his own life to fix it.
Yeah,
like that was huge for him, huge for his character.
I think like you said, I think it's an indicator. Like people one of the biggest things I think people complain about is Subaru's like personality, and he's probably the worst MC. And I'm just there like, bro, I've never seen an MC be developed like this in a long time. He's like, there was a point initially in season 1 where he wouldn't have done that for anybody else, and now he's doing it for the one character who literally supported him throughout season 1, and that shows like an improvement in character. And the whole, I mean, not just that moment, but there's so many other moments throughout the season, you know, moments with Beatrice, Emilia, Roswell, so many of where it shows like he as a character is like I know somebody called it his, well, I can't say the word on YouTube, of course, but his whiny arc. Season 1 was his whiny arc. This is his, I think his arc where it's kind of like both his and Emilia's arc. I think part 1 of the season was his arc, and part 2 is obviously Emilia growing out of her shell as well, right? So it's kind of like a mixture of the two.
It's the maturity.
Yeah, the maturity is fantastic.
He really really becomes like not like a character. He's been a character the whole time, but it's like he takes on his role.
Exactly.
I love it.
He elevates himself to the MC. He goes from somebody nobody wants as an MC to somebody who's I can respect him being the MC.
You know, I'm always rooting for him. That's exactly what you want. That you want someone to root for. And I think a huge thing too is not just his. It's like, speaking of characters, it's the overall connection that you see between each character. You finally get to see who everyone is, why they're doing what they're doing, all their backstories, and the connection between it all is so interwoven. It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy.
And coming back to obviously the first episode, we saw Crush, and you know, we saw Crush losing her memories as well. You know, Subaru breaking down again, and Emilia being like, I'll be the one to save you this time. And it's like, this is it. This is the starting point we're going with. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. This is probably one of the better starts of season 1. Or better starts of a season I've seen in a while, right?
It was just hard hitting for sure.
It was very hard hitting. And then, of course, we go on to them traveling to a place called the Sanctuary, basically, where Roswell and Ram are based in currently at this point. And there they find out, or well, before that, actually, Subaru meets Echidna, finally. Somebody who we've been teased before season 2 started. And the first interaction is kind of funny because it's, you know, the bodily fluids thing and whatnot. It was kind of funny. We didn't really realize how much of a threat she would be, or how much of an influence, I should say, more so she would be to the story and her connections to all the characters currently within the story. And then, of course, they go to the Sanctuary. They find out, you know, they can't leave the Sanctuary because there's some barrier that holds back all half-breeds basically from going out. And then effectively they have to go through this trial, which Emilia goes through, can't do it. And one of the best scenes, in my opinion, happens here is where Subaru also goes in with Emilia at one point to try and save her. And he meets his parents.
Dude.
Which I personally think that was I think that is my I think if it wasn't for another scene in the second part, I would say that would probably be my favorite scene, my favorite episode period of the season, hands down. I loved
that episode so much, dude. That was his growth. That was it. That was him accepting so much in his life. It was insane, and you could see from then on, it just kind of the almost the calmness he had. You know, he wasn't so like what we called it, his whiny arc in the first season. He was obnoxious, right? He was very obnoxious, which I didn't mind necessarily, but I don't know, seeing this more confident, serious, he's still like a little bit powerless, but it's okay because I mean his demeanor just totally changed after that episode with his parents. I loved that so much.
Well, I completely agree with you on that one. That was a fantastic episode, and it kind of showed, because you have to remember he can't go back, and the most interesting thing to me personally was the whole factor of, yeah, he's met his parents, but his parents must be in the other world just searching for him, and it's like, oh no. You usually don't think about what happens in the other world. Usually when it comes to an isekai genre, you're like, okay, this is the new world, that's what we have to base ourselves in. But that kind of hit me as well, as like, oh damn, the parents must be looking for Subaru in the other world, and all that jazz, and it's like, whew, oh boy,
well,
that kind of hit different.
Stop me if I'm going a little too quickly on what we're talking about, but it kind of goes into the second trial, where think of an unthinkable present. It's funny that they don't show that. That you bring up that point. I wonder what it would have been like had they brought up an unthinkable present of his parents looking for him,
looking for him. Yep.
Because they showed all the presents of him dying and what could have been after his death. But it gets me thinking. It gets me thinking, man. Keep going.
Of course, it's crazy. No, for sure. And of course, that means, as Chin said, there were 2 more trials, of course, which were done later on, of course, by Emilia herself. At the same time, however, there's a couple of issues going outside the trials, however, as well.
Yeah.
So effectively, after this point, Subaru decides to go back to the mansion in search for help, basically. And finds out that Elsa, a villain from season 1, comes back to destroy the mansion and kills everybody in the mansion. Now that obviously is one factor, but then he tries redoing it again. Of course, he dies to Elsa at that point, which is he literally just loses. And that's where things get a bit tasty, in my opinion. And I will say, this is where the double-pronged attack comes in, because we find ourselves, again, Roswell he's one of the most infuriating antagonists to me, if you want to call him one, I suppose, at this point. At this point in the story, because it's just like you think he'll help you, but he doesn't. Instead, he makes things worse, and it's like, please, man, do something. And it's this is where it gets extremely nice, because it's like he puts the question to Subaru, because he's the one who ordered the attack on the mansion, basically. And at the same time, one of the 3 great beasts, basically, the white whale and whatnot, one of them, called the Great Rabbit, basically a cannibalistic, I suppose, carnivorous rabbits that multiply in size.
It's like a million rabbits from Monty Python. It's like there's like 10 billion of them. It's horrifying.
Effectively, and it's just crazy. At this point, I think this is where I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting to see what happens. And this is quite late on into the first part, in my opinion, which I was kind of surprised by at the same time, because I was like, we've redone I've seen Subaru, I think at this point he redid it like 7 to 8 times at this point, I think, the first part. And it was like, there's no way he's gonna be able to do this. And then, of course, he gets slapped into action by Otto, best sidekick. How did you feel about Otto this season?
I loved him because I didn't think he'd be anything at all. He was just a carriage man, and he was so unimpressive. He was just a fine, funny guy. But bro, he is awesome. He's awesome. Yep. He's so cool. His what the my computer just went black on me. Dude, the fact that he was the one to slap sense into Subaru, to be like, you can't give up. Like, I'm not gonna let you give up. And you've never asked me for help. I'm not useless like you think I am. Which is funny because isn't that also what Subaru tries to prove to everyone? Is I'm not useless. He tries to prove that to Emilia over and over again. And then he overlooks Otto in the exact same way. And Otto's like, stop doing that. Like, it plays into like his first trial, right? Of accept the love that's around you. And, Otto's obviously, it's like a platonic friendship love that Otto has that he just wasn't accepting. And it really plays into that theme that they were trying to drive home is, I mean, the overall theme is like, right? Accept help, isn't it? Like, that's kind of the overarching, very generic theme. Accept the love and help that's around you, sort of a thing. Lean on people.
again, it sort of carries on from season 1, like you mentioned. Again, Rem and Subaru's relationship, but this time
Yeah.
it's more so Subaru's relationship with everybody, like we mentioned at the start, right? It's his connection to these other characters that's so important.
Yes.
And you can even see it with even his enemies, arguably his talks with Echidna and the other witches of sin, arguably. You know, Satella obviously making her appearance when he goes to meet Echidna for the 3rd time, I think it was. At the end of part 1, at episode 12, Satella, Minerva, all the other witches of sins, and even just Roswaal in general. And speaking of Subaru and Roswaal, the bet between Subaru and Roswaal, basically, where he says, I'll do it. I'm gonna save everybody. And you know what? We'll put a bet onto it, because if I win and you don't, you gotta support Amelia. And that's what happened, of course. And that's the bet that took place. I think that was a very strong moment as well. And they played very good music as well over on the top of it to make it a bit more empowering. Yeah. And I think it was a fantastic moment, because it kind of showed, like, as much as Subaru and Roswaal have their issues, they are still, kind of on the same side, yet not on the same side, kind of. Yeah. It's a very, very interesting position to be in. And I think it was handled extremely well. What do you think about the whole Subaru and Roswaal bet
it's crazy
situation that they had?
He had every doubt in his mind that Subaru could do it, but at the same time, he was doing all of that because he wanted Subaru to succeed. I mean, he's
exactly
evil. He's evil. If they lost, that was it. He didn't care because he was like, if you can't do it, you're useless to me. You were never going to be the one to help me reach my goal. But I mean, because he also knew, somehow he knew about the reset, and he knew that he's not the same Roswaal that Subaru knows. It's so weird. I feel like I would appreciate a little more explanation on how he knows exactly, but I guess it's just his book, his tome of wisdom, I think explains it to him. But that's just it. It's you're either gonna live up to my expectations and win, but I just don't think you're going to. I'm gonna win, but he doesn't want to. It's so confusing because he doesn't really want to win. He wants Subaru to succeed, but it also makes him mad if Subaru succeeds. I'm like, which leads into the whole fight at the end between him and Rom and Beatrice, and it's insane. He is insane. I mean, that's the thing. He literally was turned insane by his own, like, the witch's ambitions. Like he was filled with that own greed that Echidna is. And it transformed his thought process. It's crazy. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so cool.
I completely agree with you on that. That it's something we'll come on to in a second anyways, the sins of the past, because there's a lot of things that happen here that kind of relate to the sins of the past, quote unquote, or something regarding a lot of things regarding the past that affecting the future, even arguably, right? But another plot point occurs here, which I think was, I mean, considering everybody's distaste for Subaru, rejecting Rem's love, at least here it was accepted. Subaru finally declares his love for Amelia, and Amelia's like, you lie, you won't be able to do it. And then it was like, you know what? Let's just make out. Let's just make out.
I got the fattest W. I was so happy about that. I was like, yes. Yes, his W finally.
The song that played it, the animation quality, one of the things that I really appreciated in that is that you could see the other character in each other's eyes when they were zooming in. On each other's face. That was that was done extremely well, and hats off to them. They did a fantastic job. Honestly, with that scene entirely, the music was done well. Overall, it was just beautifully handled, and as you said, my boy got the fattest dub. Let's get it.
Fattest dub. You know what I also think adds to those scenes too? Is because the way the whole anime is set up is that, dude, anything can still happen. You're not satisfied with those happy moments until the very end when it's like, okay, this really was a happy moment. It's not like all of a sudden you were looking at the reflections in the eyes and you would just see blood splatter because maybe Roswaal came, or maybe Echidna came to the forest, or not Echidna. Sorry, the belly hunter came to the forest for some reason. Like the entire anime just keeps you on edge, and like until they finally kissed and it went by, I was like, my heart was racing. I was like, please don't do anything like I would hate. Like please don't reset all of a sudden.
Let them have this.
Let them have this moment, and then they did, and it honestly makes it all the more satisfying because of that. Like it, dude. Wonderful job.
And that brings us to getting it right. Of course, this was obviously from this moment on. I think there was I don't think there was a reset from this moment on.
There wasn't. That was the best part.
And it was just straight. This was it. This was getting it all right in the same moment in time.
Yeah.
We saw obviously Otto fighting Garfield because at the same time, a lot of the characters that they wanted to be on the same side, but they had different ways of going about it and solving these issues that they were all against each other at the same time. Roswell had its own thing, Garfield had his own thing, Ryuzu has her own thing. Subaru was trying to get everybody onto the same side, and it was like, come on guys, let's get everything sorted out. And of course Otto kind of beats some sense into Garfield, which was great. That was a good scene as well.
And when Subaru literally beat some sense in him with his new powers.
That's true as well. That is also true as well.
Crazy.
And after that, it's all or nothing. Obviously, Emilia goes into her trials, and Subaru at the same time, as well as a couple of others, go over to the mansion to try and get everything sorted out. Of course, Emilia's trial was very, very interesting. We obviously see her mother, Mother Fortuna, along with a familiar face in Jace, of course. The Archbishop's sin of Sloth, of course, that we know, and we knew he was a father figure to Emilia. We found that out, of course, here. And obviously there was a lot of discussions and back and forth between Emilia and Echidna throughout, Emilia wanting to save and recover people from her ice powers that she, froze everybody. And Echidna says, but you will kill them if you, defrost them. And she said, so be it. I'll do it as king either way. And that shows also Emilia's improvement. She was so scared of that moment of like, what if they die, kind of, if I defreeze them, and everything of that sort. And that again is another thing of like, okay, you're showing her being more powerful. She's taking the decisions like a king would, whatever the risk it may be. I want to do what's right at the end of the day. And that was great for me. What do you think about that?
I loved it. Dude, there's so much to unpack in her memories. There's so much. But just looking at that and her interaction with Echidna, I need to see more. Because that hurt Echidna. She came to that conclusion of, it's okay. You know what? I know that maybe there's a chance that they're gone and I killed them.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we don't know for sure. And I'm willing to take the chance because it's what's right. It's what's right to make up for the mistakes that I made. The way that I hurt people. And it's just not explained why Echidna hates her so much. I feel like it mostly has to do with maybe her relation to, Satella.
The Satella.
I mean, is she her daughter? Is that what they mean by witch's daughter? Is that what they mean by so many other things? Which,
potentially.
Potentially,
I mean,
right?
There's another thing we have to remember. Satella looks extremely similar to Emilia as well.
The exact same? Okay, also she has the little the little hair piece too. Like,
there's so many factors we don't know.
Her,
yeah, exactly.
Or is she, because I obviously have seen theories of like, like she is Satella in the future. Like there's a time travel thing and yada, yada, yada. Like there's too much to go on, which also goes back into like Basil Geese. Why did she deny him in the future when he took that power to save her in the past? And then it all connects back. It's so insane. And then we also see who is the other archbishop that we see? It's not Greed. Greed. It was
Cornelius?
the other one. Cornelius. He's
Cornelius.
Yes, Cornelius.
No, was that the Greed one?
He's not Greed, is he? He's the other one.
No, Cornelius is Greed. I'm pretty sure Cornelius ReZero. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's
who was the
Greed.
other one then? Remember there was two that we saw in the beginning of the season.
Oh,
the
Pandora.
One that that actually ate Rems. He's the one that ate Rems. It was Gluttony.
Oh no,
Gluttony.
that was Gluttony. Yep, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. I don't remember his name. I think his name is Lai or Rai, something like that.
Yeah,
something.
I got them mixed up for a second.
Yeah.
So it was Greed and Gluttony. Because Gluttony ate.
Yeah, it was Lai
Baten
Kaitos. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting off point because there's so much to talk about. But yeah, just that specific thing of her accepting, like, her actions and how that relates to her being the future queen. Hopefully, we hope that comes to be in the future. But huge moments for her going into her past
100%.
and really getting to see who she is. And then there's just so much we can go off of on theories after that.
Of course. Yeah, no, there's so much still to go. I mean, we're barely into the latter half of the season, and of course, we'll move on to effectively what is the finale and like the
Yeah, there's
uh, end product that happened effectively, and that is, of course, the whole thing with Beatrice and her 400 years of quote-unquote
right.
imprisonment in the Forbidden Library. Of course, we know she calls Echidna her mother, who said you have to wait 400 years for that person, and of course, we come to find out Echidna said, well, that person is just whoever Beatrice imagines it is, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Subaru's just like, wait, what? What you say? You liked her, basically, is what you're saying, and it's like, God damn it, Echidna. But they handled that extremely well. You know, that moment, you know, the fire falling around the mansion. Of course, well, Subaru's going to try and save everybody.
お母様との約束も完全に違えてしまったかしら。
それなら最後に俺の話を聞いてくれ。
You know, Elsa dies and whatnot. It's a lot of things happen in that moment, but I think I know, yeah, it's crazy. There's so much things that happen in that moment, and it's just like, I want to specifically talk about that whole Beatrice Subaru scene, which that was so beautiful to me as well. I mean, it kind of adds into the whole point of it's another girl under Subaru's like belt of like you know, girls that are after him. But I think that was a very
Seems
very
like
cute,
a nice little anime trope, but it's okay.
I mean, that's every isekai MC at this point, I feel. But, you know, I think it was very well handled, you know, how Subaru kind of convinced her. The writing, the music, again, phenomenal. I don't think I have any complaints. Of course, we also saw some backstory with Ryuzu, Beatrice, and the original Rosewall, shall we say. And I think it's, again, that the whole point of it is like, it's so interwoven. All these stories are so interwoven. Like, we didn't even think Beatrice, or we knew Beatrice was connected to Echidna in some way at the start, but we didn't know it was so intricately, where it was like she called her mother kind of thing, right? And then, of course, Rosewall's connection to Echidna as well, and Ryuzu's as well. Like, there was so many connections throughout that was just insane to me.
It's crazy.
And we even saw it in the finale, where we found out that the Rosewall we know is actually the Rosewall 400 years ago.
Right.
So
he's been
it's
the
like,
same Rosewall for 400 years, just different bodies.
Yeah, and it's
just
like
transferring soul to soul to soul.
Mhm.
And Beatrice is just like, how did you do that when our mother couldn't do that? Like, how?
Yeah.
So that's another thing to get answered next season.
That's just so much to get answered next
There's
season.
so
And of
much
course,
to
we
get
see Echidna. Yeah, we see Echidna obviously lying in a effective quote unquote coffin, effectively, just sleeping away like Sleeping Beauty, effectively. And obviously, we end up finally defeating the Great Rabbits after the whole mansion is basically destroyed while they kill Elsa. And the finale, I mean, teamwork makes the dream work. Emilia, Subaru, and obviously Beatrice beat the Great Rabbit, which was, I think, it was a bit, okay, that's where I think I have a bit of a issue with. I think it was done too quickly, in my opinion. Like, the Great Rabbit just died in like 5 minutes, and I was like, oh, is that it? I know it wouldn't have been some phenomenal fight or anything, but it felt very anticlimactic, I must admit.
I do understand. I thought maybe they would get like eviscerated in front of us, but she's just like, I'm gonna just put them in another dimension. They're not gonna touch us again. And I was like, you know, it's a little anticlimactic, but at the same time,
it does the job.
It does the job, and it's not like out of the blue. It makes sense. So I have to accept it. You know, like, I have to accept 100%. It.
Yep, and then we obviously round up with Subaru getting knighted and being knighthood? Emilia's knight, effectively.
It's another fat W from my boy.
It's another fat W. And we obviously end on a bit of a happy ending where they're dancing. Obviously, Emilia is chosen for the royal selection, and Rosewall, we find out, has been implemented with sort of like a cursed seal, quote unquote, where it's like, if he betrays Emilia, he dies, basically, kind of thing. And it's like,
he can't betray any of them. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I think it's just the Emilia club or camp, I should say. The Emilia camp, I think, is the best way to call it. So if he betrays anybody in the Emilia camp, it's done out here for him. But that's the season. I think we covered a lot of the points that we enjoyed, and I think the major plot points, which I think were phenomenal. We kind of did majority of it, of course. You know, we kind of covered most of it, but there's a lot of intricate moments that obviously you'd have to watch to kind of understand.
There's so many things that I wish we could talk about. We just don't have enough time. I mean, there's so many things about like Puck. There's so many things about Satella. There's still more I want to know. Like when she appeared, you know, when she actually appeared, not inside the dream world or the Tea Party, when she was sucking everybody up and killing them. And dude, there's so much. There's too much to talk about. So don't think we don't know about it in the comments, guys. We know about everything. There's just too much to talk about. So
exactly, I think there's so much to kind of cover as well, in terms of like we still haven't finished off with what's gonna happen to Rem. Are they gonna be able to kill the Sin Archbishop of what was it, Gluttony? Lie, of course.
Dude,
will we
how
ever
are they gonna get back to Echidna?
That's true as well. Echidna, Roswell, is he gonna, still be on the camp throughout? Is the seal gonna ever disappear potentially at some point once he completes his contract? What will he do afterwards? There's still so much to go, and I'm looking forward to season 3, exceptionally, and hopefully this time not for another 4 years, please.
I really hope not, but I also, I'm keeping my head open to just like season 1 ended up so happy. Season 3, I know it's just gonna come in, smashing our expectations. It's gonna like knock us down like 6 pegs and break our hearts right on the first episode. I just know it is. I just know it is. I'm ready for it this time.
And of course, I know in the light novels, based on the light novels, we're only on arc 4. So I'm looking forward to seeing how many arcs they cover in the next, because I know this whole season was literally just arc 4 that they covered. And I think there's like another 3 to 4 arcs still in the light novel, and obviously still ongoing, right? So it's going to be very, very interesting to say the least. Overall, I'd say, personally, I enjoyed it. I think the plot points were handled exceptionally well. Yes, I do agree with a lot of the majority that you could feel some things were skipped and glossed over relatively easily, like you mentioned. Some plot points were like, well, hang on, how does he know this? Or, how does he know that? Or how does she know that, kind of thing? And some of it was kind of there and it was kind of iffy. But overall, I still think, for the overarching story, it was handled exceptionally well.
And it's still pretty cohesive, and I imagine they'll answer those questions. I have faith they'll answer those.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that I feel is in any show. I feel like if they don't answer it once, they probably might answer it later on. Like, I think it was, just to give a reference, Danmachi didn't show something in episode 1, but it came back in episode 12. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. That you kind of referenced it there, I suppose, instead of the first episode where it should have been. But, it'd be like that. Similarly, I hope that they do so with some of the stuff that we've kind of not seen entirely in season 2. Gets answered in season 3. But any final thoughts from you, Chin, before we wrap up?
Dude, I loved it. And again, like I say to you and to the people who will watch this and in the comments, like there's so much that I have thoughts about. I'd love to discuss in the comments with you guys. So many different little things that we couldn't get to in this discussion. Dude, I felt so happy at the last episode, and that's all I wanted. I want a happy ending in this, because through all the hardships that Subaru goes through and all the people have to face, it's just one of those shows that I need a happy ending. And I'm glad we got it at the end of this season, just like the end of the first season. So that's it. That's my thoughts on it. It's great. If you haven't seen this anime, you need to. Like, for coming from someone who does not watch very many animes, it is one that I am willing to binge out in like 2 days because it is that good. So
I have to agree. I have to agree with that, to be honest. In terms of the isekai genre, I know most people know that I watch a lot of shows in comparison to a general just a general audience member. But out of all the isekais I've watched, I'd say this is probably one of the best, if not the best, out there airing right now. So, or just even being serialized, I suppose is the best way to put it. Right now. But yeah, let us know down in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the show? Leave a like, of course. Comment down below, what are your thoughts on ReZero, of course. We will be back tomorrow with the Dr. Stone review from myself and Waffles. But of course, today it's been Gale Wright and the Platinum Chin. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Guys. Peace out.